All right. Well, just really quickly here, my name is Elizabeth Carl. Most of you, I think, that are on probably know me. I'm a teacher here at BBCHS, and I am part of our equity team. So I just wanted to take a second to welcome you all. Thank you guys for coming. As a part of Women's History Month, we thought that it would be important and also fitting to take some time to talk with some local women from the community who are doing outstanding things and just kind of get their perspective, have them share a little bit with us. We think it's great for our students and for staff members just to see what people in the community are doing. So Amy Kemp is going to lead us today in kind of a panel format and ask some questions. So we will listen to that. I'm super excited about all they have to say. So thank you guys for coming. Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
Thank you so much. I am honored to be a part of today. I'm so grateful to lead a conversation, especially one that is recognizing Valiant women. What a cool initiative. And I definitely feel like we have some here to share with you from our community. So I'm going to start just by having each of them share a little bit of their story, how they came to do what they do, to lead in the places where they currently lead, and just tell us a little about you. How did you get here? So Jasmine, I'll start with you, if you don't mind. You're in the top of my screen.
Amy, I feel like you always call on me to start.
You're a good starter.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, BBCHS and the equity team. I think this is awesome that you all are doing this and uplifting the women in our community. To start off, I am the marketing and communications coordinator for the city of Kankakee. I was born and raised in Kankakee, Kankakee graduate, although I currently live in Bourbonnais. My favorite job to date, probably before this job, is working at Target in Bourbonnais. I've really enjoyed being a cashier there and learning stories and learning that every person has a story. And that kind of was the passion to me becoming a journalist. So after I graduated high school, I went to Illinois State, graduated from Illinois State University with my bachelor's in broadcast journalism, and I became a news reporter. And I was a news reporter, producer, and multimedia journalist, and I kind of still take on that role in my community today. So in my role currently, I write press releases, I share the positive things happening in our community. I help to plan outreach in the mayor's office. I'm under Mayor Chastity Wells Armstrong administration, but we do work with a lot of community partners. I am a solo department, so I take on a lot in my role, but I'm really thankful for it. And I just really enjoy putting the positive news out there. I always wanted to be closer to home. Like, I get that question a lot, like, why did you leave television to come back to Kankakee? That's the #1 question that I get. And really, it's just because I'm really passionate about my community. Kankakee County as a whole, I really think this is a great area to grow and thrive. There's so much potential here. And I just really enjoy sharing those stories. So I also manage the social media pages, the website. I have a lot of interaction with community members, business owners. We have Women's Wednesday going on today down in downtown. So it's just a lot of positivity. I'm a really bubbly person, so I really enjoy the role that I'm currently in and really just being back closer to home.
Awesome. How long have you been in this role, Jasmine? When did you move back?
I moved back home at the end of 2014, okay. And I actually worked as a counselor. I'm really passionate about youth and working with the upcoming generation. So I worked as a youth counselor at Indian Oaks Academy in Manteno. I was there for another 4 to 5 years. Even when I became in this role, I still worked there part-time because I was so passionate about my youth and my students there that I really wanted to remain involved. But I came in this role in August of 2019.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much. I love to hear that you wanted to come back home. I think that's cool and unusual, and especially when you have kind of a glamorous role as a, in news, that it feels like that would be something that would be more glamorous, but that you found great value here in our community.
Well, you mentioned it earlier, Amy, and I like the point that you made that media is changing. So I really think it's important that we are all voices in those roles today.
It's true. Very true.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm going to go to Camille next. Tell us a little about you, Camille.
So I am a pharmacist, clinical staff pharmacist. I currently work for Iroquois Memorial Hospital. I originally, graduated from University of Pittsburgh back in 2002. And I started off actually being a chemistry major, planning to go to medical school, but I grabbed a love for pharmacy and pharmacology just from my chemistry love, and then also just seeing the difficulties of navigating the HMO process and the doctors having to ask so many questions to pharmacists when I was interning for CVS. During my years of just taking core courses and preparing for a chemistry major. So I just said, you know what, I think I'm gonna make a beeline. I may eventually go to medical school, but I think I'm gonna, get focused in and focused on pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences. So that is why I went into pharmacy and never looked back. So right now, I absolutely adore the bedside. I'm not doing just dispensing as what many people probably think of pharmacy as just the dispensing part, but I'm actually a part of a multidisciplinary team. I function as a consultant. The physicians depend on me to determine drug regimens, drug strategies for problematic patients. They ask me to dose a lot of medications in their absence. They consult me on more narrow therapeutic index medications. I'm sorry for the jargon. And so I just love it. I have a strong passion for pharmacy, in particular with regard to how pharmacy impacts the body and our role as those that are recipients, what we need to do. Pharmacy is not a cookie cutter kind of thing. You have to know your patient. You need to understand your patient, whether there is an acute setting or an outpatient setting, and knowing how to tweak and manage, their disease state and how to process their regimen and how to make suggestions, So I love the clinical facets of pharmacy. Again, I graduated from University of Pittsburgh in 2002. I've done everything from working in a CVS to working behind the bench in hospital pharmacy to being up there in the ICU and managing drips for terminal patients. I've done that. I've taught students that are matriculating through their latter years of pharmacy school. So I've done that. I am currently here in Kankakee. I moved here from Pittsburgh by way of Atlanta. I was in Atlanta for about 6 years. And then we came here in 2016 following my husband. My husband is Dr. Reverend Montel Crawford. He is the senior pastor at Morning Star Missionary Baptist Church here in Kankakee. So we came here, and this experience has been exceedingly rewarding because immediately when I came, I realized that a lot of the women were looking forward to a pastor's wife to join. They had been without a pastor's wife for a couple of years, and they were looking forward to that leadership. So quickly when I arrived, I realized that, oh wow, women want me to be something that I don't know if I know how to be it. So just by praying and talking to my husband, talking to other women that are in ministry, other first ladies, pastors' wives, ministers' wives, you just glean that information and you just show up, and a lot of times the love of God comes through by you just being a conduit. And so I show up and I pray that God is downloading information that's going to be relevant, and I try to be a mouthpiece. So far that's kind of helped, kind of worked. And right now I am chairman of our women's ministry called Women of Prayer and Action. We have been, I guess you can say, chartered since 2017. And we annually put on a wellness conference, and that's just for the day every September. We do a lot of, it's pretty multifaceted in that, you know, we focus on different disease states, but in particular, we focus on making sure that we have a good blood drive. And we pretty much have met our goal ever since since we started in our blood drive. You know, the African American community is devastated a lot by sickle cell, and we have some members that are unfortunately impacted severely by the disease. So, you know, that's one in particular, you know, one of the reasons why we are so gung-ho about our blood drive. Although only annual, we're pretty successful. You know, the other thing that we put on is, we've only done it one time, I should say, but it's definitely on our heart, and we were wanting to do it again last year. But of course, because of the pandemic, we opted out of doing anything virtually. We did an empowerment weekend where we were able to do something pretty busy, where we had our entire campus engaged. The sanctuary and the entire church were saturated with women and their businesses. So it was a day for shopping, for praying, and for playing, you know what I mean? Across the street, we have a community center, and we used that for prayer, and we had a prayer walk. So it was pretty interactive, and it was very memorable. People are still talking about it. So that's what's come out of our group, and we would love to see it happen again in 2021.
That's awesome. You had me with all you shared except for the love of chemistry.
Oh, sorry.
I love many things in life, but chemistry is not one of them.
Well, you know what? I think it's just one of those God-given gifts, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I can't boast that I'm just like this diehard person that stays up all night studying chemistry. Because when I was in high school, when we were talking about high school, you were bringing me back to this. I loved organic chemistry. That was my thing. And my professor in organic chemistry, he said, I promise you, I don't tell this to a lot of people, but you have stereo vision. And I was just like, what do you mean? He's just like, you just know how to rotate these molecules. You know which direction they're rotating. And I just said, I don't know. But from there, I knew I needed to major in chemistry, which is my thing.
So great. Yes, things people have never said to me that I knew how molecules were rotating.
Yeah.
So great.
Vision. You put stereo vision.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much, Camille. I'm going to go down to Missy and have her share a little of her story.
Camille, we have a lot of similarities. It's going to be crazy when you hear my story right now, because I was just so like connecting with you on that.
Okay.
It's amazing. So first of all, thank you for having me, Amy, and the BB staff. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys today and tell you a little bit about myself, because I think there are a lot of people that don't know my background. So it'd be fun to share. Currently, I'm an associate director of R&D project management at CSL Behring. I've been there for most of my 21 years. I lead projects globally, and I'm able to interact with Germany, Switzerland, and Australia on a daily basis. So moving virtually was rather easy for me because I'm on the phone most of the time with my other colleagues all over the world anyway. So was easy. One of my projects actually I'm leading right now is a new product development that's about to start phase 1 clinical trials for sickle cell anemia. So I'm enjoying that immensely, considering the current state of our world and talking about, you know, the vaccine coming on pretty quickly and being able to educate people the process. I really enjoyed doing that, so that's been fun. Over the years, I've led a multitude of projects, which I enjoy, and I continue to learn and grow with each challenge, and each project is different, and I learn something new on each one of them. How did I get here? Well, I'm born and raised here. I've lived in Bourbonnais all my life, except when I went to college. I graduated from BB. Growing up, I thought I wanted to become a pharmacist because my father had his own pharmacy for 20 plus years, and I grew up around that, so that's what I thought I wanted to do. But as I got into high school, I was working towards playing volleyball in college. That was my passion. During my sophomore, junior year, my coach, who was a longtime coach at BB, Darla Moldenauer. She held camps for younger kids, and we assisted with running them. And I think that's really what laid the groundwork for my passion in coaching and teaching. As you said, chemistry, my chemistry teacher, Mr. Cruz, he taught chemistry and physics, and I absolutely loved his classes. Organic chemistry, definitely my favorite class I've ever taken. So, for sure. So from there, I was fortunate to be able to go to Georgia State University in Atlanta, Georgia, for them to pay for me to play volleyball and get my chemistry and physics degree. So as much as I loved Atlanta and I was there for 5 years, I knew deep down in my heart I was going to come home. My family is everything to me. So I just got my degree in chemistry and physics, and I was planning to move home to get my teaching degree. While in Atlanta, also, I was able to work the '96 Summer Olympics and Paralympics, which is an amazing experience I will never forget. I was on the gold medal volleyball game on the floor, wiping up people's sweat. But I was just able to watch the best volleyball in the world. It was amazing. During my last year of college, I was offered the head coaching position at Bishop McNamara to lead that volleyball program. And I also taught physics, physical science, and algebra to seniors and freshmen. Amy, as you were talking about, we talked about earlier, people mistook me for a student because I was so young coming out of college. So let me tell you, teachers are very special people. So to everyone on the call that is a teacher, thank you, thank you, thank you for what you do. I quickly learned that wasn't necessarily a passion for me. So during that same year that I was teaching, I actually started working at CSL. I continued as a head coach for one more year and decided to focus on my career. I completed my MBA, got married, and my husband and I started a family. So really what took me back into coaching was my daughter started getting to the age where she was going to be playing sports. So I began coaching her in pretty much anything she did, whether it was soccer, baseball, softball, volleyball. That's where I really started to be able to build relationships with a lot of these children and a lot of the families within the community that I still have lasting relationships with, which it means a lot to me. So quick fast forward to 2021, I'm in my 19th year at CSL, and then in my second year of coaching volleyball at BB. 2 years ago, I stepped into the BB gym and I knew I was home. And it's very hard for me even to say that today because I get so emotional about it. I'm really very much in my element. We talked about this last night in the gym, and I'm just so proud to be at BB and be able to see my kids go through the district. And I seriously 100% love my career. I love having CSL, but I also love coaching, and I'm very, very blessed to be able to have the work-life balance that I have right now.
So great. Okay, I'm going to ask each of you one more question, which is about leadership and seeing yourself as a leader, and when you first recognized that you had influence, or the first time you thought, oh, I am a leader, or you discovered people are following me, and when you experience that. I'm thinking about different journeys that all kinds of women go on. So I'm going to mix it up a little bit. Camille, I'll start with you on this one. Tell me about you thinking of yourself as a leader or leading, knowing you had influence.
So, okay, so I'd have to go all the way back when it comes to that. Are we talking about influence like modern day, like followers on
That's a great
social
question.
media page, or are we talking about
Right. Well, there could be a difference, or it could be one and the same. What do you think?
Right. So I don't know. I think okay. So when I think about when I first realized that I was in a leadership role, I think that was probably, a long time ago, well before college, well before high school, I had a best friend that she and I would go ice skating every Friday night. And this was the only person I was allowed to spend the night over, because I wasn't really allowed to spend the night over people's homes. Anyway, so showing how far back we're going. And her mother said to me, because I asked a question about, well, why are you asking me this particular thing without getting into details? And she said, well, because I know if it were you, I could trust whatever you have to say about this. And then I went home to my mother and I said, Mom, I noticed that some of these parents really put a lot of weight on me when it comes to responding about their children, talking to them about my friends or whatever, even if it had nothing to do with it being bad. It just, just in conversation, a lot of times the dynamic would go from kid to parent to, okay, I know I can trust you. You need to talk to me in detail about this. And this is why I want you to continue interacting with my child. Fast forward to now, I see the same dynamic happening with one of my children and some of her friends and some of the parents. Kind of gives me flashbacks. Okay, and then when it comes to career, when I entered into the pharmacy program at University of Pittsburgh, I was the only African American in my class. So I was African American and female. And I felt like, okay, well, I got to do things differently. I have to dress differently. I have to show up differently. I have to respond differently. So those things for me were like, I'm a leader, whether I want to be it or not in this moment, So I took that on then. And then, so then when we come up to now, in our social media age, and being here in Kankakee, I knew that with me being the pastor's wife, there's always that limelight, whether you want to be there or not. It's showing, it's shining. And having to be an example, having to do things a certain way, having to learn something new to add value to where I am, even though I maybe wasn't planning on doing that before we got here, and it's scary because, again, like I never want to show up and act like, oh yeah, I was completely prepared for this moment. I knew exactly what God was doing decades ago to prepare me for this moment, absolutely not. And again, that's why, I feel like the best leaders are the most humble, because they surround themselves with people that they know they can trust and that a lot of times are smarter than them, acknowledge the intelligence and use it, and that is what I have practiced over the years, being in these leadership situations. Mm. As far as social media is concerned, I don't really feel like I have a ton of followers. I mean, when I compare it to other people who do have a lot of followers. Mm-hmm. But I do know that I'm deliberate about what I put out there, because even years later, it'll come back some way, somehow. You'll get a phone call, you'll get a text, you'll be like, oh girl, I'm so glad you told me this, because I remember when you said this on social media or on Facebook years ago, and you're just like, oh wow, you're refreshing my memory. I didn't remember saying that, Mm-hmm. And it was impactful. So
I love the idea that there's a weight of responsibility that comes with that leadership. Mm-hmm. That you have opportunity, but you also have responsibility when you know that you have that voice. Mm-hmm. It's really powerful. Okay, let me go to Missy for this question about when did you think of yourself as a leader, or when did you know you had influence?
That's a tough one. I think I go back as far as Camille. I mean, I guess starting in middle school, I realized, and it predominantly was around sports to start with, but the coaches always kind of looked to me to gather the team, to get them together, to make sure that we're ready to go. And then we led that into the classroom, because academics was it was more important than sports in my household, and the expectations were there. So, leading by ensuring that I'm getting the work done and being able to tell my teammates that, make sure they're held accountable. And I do the same thing for my children now. So I think that is probably where it started. I mean, my 23-year-old self leading a high school program is vastly different than I am now, right? I look at things a lot differently, and honestly, I probably listen more as a leader than I speak, because you're taking everything in, and different people need different things, and I think that shows a really good leadership capability to be able to take everything in. And we have a social responsibility, as we talk about social media. I rarely post anything besides my kids, to be honest, because you're right, it can come back. And I try to teach my kids I coach, that anything that's put on social media will come back to you. And if you're showed as a leader and they see you doing that, that could come back to haunt you someday for sure. So yes, as far back as middle school, but like I said, I've grown differently. You know, I've been mentored by some pretty good, fantastic female women, particularly Lori Schweigert. She's really been an awesome mentor to me the last few years and really helped me develop those leadership skills and to further learn.
It's cool. I love the idea that you can get better, that you're always getting better when you're a leader. You don't have to just show up and know it all. You can learn on the job and kind of learn as you go, and that you can be receiving mentorship from people as you're mentoring people, so that you're receiving and giving at the same time. I think that's so important in just the lifespan of every leader, that you have people on both ends of that relationship to, you know, both receive and give. All right, Jasmine, you're last but not least on this one. Talk about leadership and your journey.
So that's a really good question. I can really relate with Missy and Camille. I kind of started off quiet. I was the shy girl. So I kind of came, you know, to know my own voice and kind of develop my voice, but that didn't happen until about my mid-20s. My mom is a teacher, so I have a big heart for teachers. She's now retired, but she taught for more than 35 years. In the Kankakee School District, and she's very popular. But I just kind of developed that from my mom, and just really investing in the younger voices. That kind of inspired me. Again, I was shy and quiet. I had my friends, but we kind of stayed in our own circle. But it really started for me back when I was a counselor at Indian Oaks. Working with those kids and those students, it really touched my heart. I'm still attached to them. I still work part-time there on the weekends, and really just hearing what they've gone through. Most of them are victims. A lot of them are, you know, a lot of them feel like they are labeled, and they feel like people aren't hearing them. People aren't hearing their story. People don't care about their story. And really, just to give you a perspective, the average student or the average youth there, it ranges from ages 12 to 21. They've been displaced 12 times. So that's hospital, that's jail, that's foster home, group home, you name it. They're used to going from place to place to place. So really, working there, it changed my life. Really hearing their stories and just being an advocate for them, teaching them how to use their voices. I can feel it in my voice. When I'm passionate about something, my voice gets shaky. But really just hearing their stories and really learning and realizing that I didn't even realize at the time when I was counseling them, but I was a role model to them. And really, I took on the job to be a mentor and to teach them healthy life skills, to teach them that it's never too late. You know, you can start whenever to be on the right path, but really just learning how to teach them how to uplift their voices. It really humbled me, and it really made me realize that people are watching you no matter what you're doing. You are always an example to someone. So really just being that positive example. I can definitely relate to Miss Camille. In college, I was the only African-American female. We had a full ran news station, all run by students. It was called TV 10 News. And I was really challenged a lot in that aspect to where we had to lead differently. We shared our stories differently, and also working in news. A lot of people don't realize there are also things that you can and cannot do. It depends on the market. So I work for ABC Channel 7, to where it was more liberal. We were able to be more of ourselves, to whereas Fox was more conservative, and you had to look a certain way. You had to dress a certain way. You had to wear your hair straight. You had to wear lipstick, you know, things like that, that most people don't realize when you're watching TV. You're watching who you're watching on the screen, but also really learning how to relate to different people and capturing different audiences. One thing I'm so passionate about why I'm telling stories and sharing people is connecting people. I really value that. I really love hearing people's stories and really just taking a back seat. But my goal is, at the end of the day, is to connect others as well, because we all have a part in the world today. I know it sounds cliche, but I'm just really passionate about that. So really, discovering my voice came later. I was in my late 20s, and I'm still discovering my voice. I'm still learning.
I'm always surprised at how many women are leading who don't define themselves as leaders. It's so fascinating, because I would bet that you were leading all along. You just didn't identify it or define yourself that way.
I didn't. It didn't occur to me until I started noticing what Missy was saying about the social media, what you post, what you share. You know, it does follow you. So I love quotes. I read about 50 million quotes a day. I'm a big fan of Joyce Meyer. I love Michelle Obama. So I try to follow, you know, not only women nationally, but a lot of local women here as well.
It's fabulous. Well, I'm so grateful. Thank you all. I think one of the unique characteristics of women who lead is that we're all driven by stories. And telling your stories, I hope, inspires future leaders, young women, whether they be students or adult women, whatever phase of life you're in, to find your leadership voice, to find your space in which you can have an impact, and to really work there, even if it's small, to really contribute in the space that you've been given to contribute. So thanks to all of you for being here. Callie, do you have any last minute announcements or anything we need to do, or are we finished up?
I think I'm going to pull over Alyssa to say final thoughts from the equity team, and then I think we can be good.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you guys. I know I was just listening, and I feel like I wish we had like an hour more, because I feel like we're just starting to even tap into all that you guys do and how amazing it is. But I know just from listening to you guys that it's obvious why you were identified as Valiant Women, and I appreciate you guys sharing that with us. And I also know that you guys are busy, so even more so, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to just kind of share with us what it looks like for you all to be Valiant Women. I know, Amy, I wish we had more time. I know you do amazing things as well. I'd love to hear from you, but we appreciate you facilitating this and just kind of being a voice for all of them. So on behalf of the equity team, I do want to say thank you, and I hope that everyone listening is able to take away not only what it looks like to be a Valiant Woman, but just how many of them are around us and how important it is to recognize them. Because like you guys are all saying, you do great work, but I don't feel like you're necessarily people who are like, hi, look at me, I'm the best, you know, I'm the leader here. So to me, that just pointed out how much more I need to pay attention and recognize those Valiant women in my life. So thank you all for sharing. We appreciate you. And I hope everyone got something out of this and that you have a great day. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.